Hmm. I don't hear anything.
This one's already sold, but maybe, I don't know, this is over or on the eastern side, but that one was sold. But that's more what we need, like a townhouse.
Yeah,
No, it has no HOA.
there it is. Oh, that's nice. How about that?
No, I'm like, where's this? We're going to see it. It's sold.
I cannot hear anything.
There is one for sale right now.
Oh, really?
It's not as nice as that one. That one's really nice. It's ceramic all through it. It's grass.
I guess the meeting started. I haven't seen anything. Can't hear anything. Let me try this again. See it?
Hmm?
They have over $1 million in reserve.
Well, I wouldn't go very far if something goes wrong.
Hmm? Let me they only paid 68,000 for snow removal this year. Last year they paid 142,000.
A lot left.
Yeah.
Can you see anything?
Nah. Nope. Well, we're talking about the budget right now, which is, you can read it, but Hey,
Mm.
glad I can't hear this part. It's Joe Carey. Yeah. The god of the HOA board. Right? Yeah, it's a shame I can't hear the damn thing, you know?
Mhm. Well, wonder why you could, and then they kept
And
that.
yeah, no, I can't. And I'm the only one that I think could hear it. Now I can't hear it at all. There's people leaving the meeting. I mean, the stuff they're doing right now is just. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could hear this. Yeah, I sure would like to.
for the record. You gotta go down that path. All right, rules and regs. Appears to be next.
Rules and regs. Who's over that area? Oh, all right, let's get going. And Steve, you want to jump in at any
Yeah,
point?
so we
Feel-
just
feel free.
made a couple of minor changes to the contractor rules that prohibits work during Christmas and New Year's week. And then we added the word smoking to just let contractors know that we do have a non-smoking property. There's a couple of non-smoking areas, the non-smoking area at the lodge. And then if you're working on someone's home, which has a private deck in the back, that would be appropriate. But we're just giving contractors a heads up that they need to follow our smoking rules. So we'll get that posted as soon as you guys adopt it. So if you just want to make a motion to adopt those minor changes, we'll get it posted.
Okay. Do we want to cover the other item first also?
I'm just curious, are we amending our rules and regs?
Yeah.
Or are we amending your deal with contractors?
No, we're amending our contractor policy.
Which I can come to the board.
And then, no, it wouldn't. I don't think we need a board vote on that.
It's a rule change. It's a policy.
It's a policy change.
So it's already a policy though.
Yeah, we're amending.
All we're doing is having to enforce it with the contract.
Yeah, I think.
No, about the change in the use of contractors during the New Year's Christmas week. That's a change.
Oh, I was back on smoking, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, also on parking, we've done a few modifications. The covered parking areas are now open to anyone on a first come, first served basis. So previously we had in the policy that only owners could park in these covered areas, and then only owners and their guests could park in these areas, and it became very hard to police who's parked in these areas. So we've opened that up to basically, again, anyone that gets there, if it's open, you can park there. We will have a limit of 10 days. Gary, correct me if I'm wrong.
Is it 10 days or 2 weeks?
It's 30 days.
Well, the rules and regs say 30 days
30. They have to move it.
for any parking place.
For any parking
Okay.
place.
Oh, okay, but I thought on this with covered parking, we had 10 days and they had to move the car. So we'll
No,
stay with
the rules and regs were changed to say nothing about a limit in covered parking. In the newsletter that went out, we put in 14 days,
Okay.
but that has not been enforced yet
Right. Okay. That's
because that has not yet been incorporated into the rules and regs.
correct. Okay. And again, well, I've got Gary here. He's helped us out on this. We're looking at using parking tags, hang tags to identify owners versus people that are here, guests, visitors, whatever. Gives us a little better idea on who's parking. And if we have an unoccupied vehicle or a vehicle that's not moved for weeks or months at a time, hopefully we'll be able to find out who that vehicle belongs to, and then hopefully we'll contact the owner. And we've got several drafts of the hang tags we're looking at. You want to go over that?
I've got a front and a back, yeah.
And they're only about this big, so. No.
So a hang tag to hang on your rear view mirror?
On your mirror, yeah. So we're still working on that, and we'll have some more information on that. Do you want to comment any more on that?
No, just what you guys want worded on there and how much we want to spend on it.
On the parking passes.
I'm assuming that hang tags were what we wanted
That's, more so than stickers.
as opposed
Yeah.
to stickers.
You could even do a laminated thing and just set it on the dashboard,
You can do that too.
which is probably cheaper.
That'd be fine.
You need three frames.
Okay, that's all I got.
So we don't really have to have any actions we need to take.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The rules and regs today say 30 days. Do we want to change? You wrote it in the newsletter, but we haven't changed it to 14.
Do you have a draft of it?
You need
Andy?
No.
Dr.
In my head, I'm trying to remember why I came up with 14 days. I think we just talked about it.
Yeah.
I
I mean, we don't have to do anything, but if we don't do anything, it's 30 is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So there's no differentiation for covered parking. Frankly, it's 30 days in any parking space.
And that probably makes more sense from a consistency point versus
Yeah.
having for this certain day for this area, certain number for another
I mean,
area.
I'm fine leaving it at 30. I just don't know how much, Gary, you get all the damn complaints. How much of a pain is it?
for,
If somebody's there 30 days.
it becomes an issue and it becomes a big issue and then it goes away and then it becomes a big issue.
Okay.
In all honesty, it's not a real big thing, but the difficulty is, how do we know how long a car's been there? You know, and
It's hard to police.
somebody may move their car and then, you know, take it downtown, come back and park in the same parking space. And we don't know that. It's just hard to police any of that parking stuff.
And that's why we
Is-
that's why we took the whole owners only thing out, because there's no way we can do it.
So then I would suggest, why don't we leave it at 30?
I agree.
Let's go ahead and implement the tags. So then we have it, we can collect some data and know whether we really do have recurring problems or one person who's abusing it or it's not a problem at all.
Yeah, even still, I mean, the tag doesn't tell us if somebody,
No.
left and came back.
Come and go.
Yeah, so it's like, I agree.
We can start chalking the
You
tires.
could.
Yeah.
You actually could, because if you did a
Oh, that's been
laminated,
done.
if you did a laminated card,
Yeah.
where are they getting these cards from? Maintenance?
Yeah, I love Gary.
So
That's it.
the day that they get them, just get one that's the non-erasable whatever, and then you put the date on there and you would know what the date is. But
Well,
I
I-
know Ken, you don't have anybody driving around. I was looking to see, but you could put a date on it.
Yeah, I was thinking more people, I mean, we would just send all the owners their tags, so they would, if they're here on property, they could put them up there. Because you're suggesting that somebody'd have to get one every time they arrived.
Isn't a bad idea. We wanted to figure out what they were doing, but I'm just, we can talk about that later. But I think, you know, especially with the clientele that you have that comes in and out of this property, we don't park in there, but you do get people that do go away for 30 days at a time and not
Sure.
14.
Yeah.
So
I say we just, let's work on the tags and leave it at 30 days for now.
I believe that's all I had.
Okay. Heather, you want to go first before we have Jerry do the water, just so you can knock it out? Since you're here.
Well, I guess I'm just gonna kind of update on changes in the rental program. And I don't know if the board wants little notes that I made.
Sounds great.
But basically, we've done a lot of changing in the rental program effective January 1. And in essence, I have brought on a couple of partners into my business, and they're really helping me get more marketing exposure is one of the main things. So now we are on about 60 marketing channels, where before we were more like 35. So we're going to be on, well, we are on all of the big ones. VRBO, HomeAway, Expedia. Got a few more tweaks to work out with Airbnb, so that one's not quite up and rolling yet. Flipkey, TripAdvisor, Hotels.com, kind of all the big marketing channels. Some other things that are changing. We are kind of implementing a new pricing system. So every week we go in and look at, okay, here's some gaps in the calendar. How can we try to fill that? We're just looking at the short term. So like, let's look at the next 2 weeks. How can we try to drive revenue over these next 2 weeks to try to fill these gaps? So that's a new system that I'm learning right now. February's kind of historically been slow for us. So we just kind of tweaked some pricing for February to try to drive some more what I call last minute business in. I don't want to go crazy low, but we do want to try to, generate that last minute income of capturing some bookings that maybe we wouldn't have gotten if we hadn't done that. And then we're going to be handling some of the owner expenses differently. We're not charging little line item things like paper towel, toilet paper, soap, all that kind of jazz. That's all just getting wrapped up now into the guest cleaning fee. So you won't be seeing those charges anymore. And then we just have a different way that we're handling any kind of guest damage things. Basically, the guests are paying a little damage waiver fee. And then if it just kind of eliminates some hassle of trying to get, if there is guest damage, collecting from the guest. I've already got a separate company that will just, okay, that they, spilled something on the comforter needs to go get laundered. It was $45. That little damage waiver fee just covers all that kind of stuff. So it just eliminates the hassle and eliminates the risk of, if they, pretend I had to charge their credit card for that, they dispute it, then it, becomes this whole issue. It just kind of eliminates all that kind of hassle if there's damage to the condo. Luckily, we haven't had a lot of that historically anyway, but this is a good, I think, a better system to have in place than risking the credit card dispute process. And so kind of with my business changes, if you're not in the rental program, or even if you are, you'll see that Tameron has a different reservation system now. It's called Bookerville. And so now when owners or other property managers submit reservation stays to the front desk, the confirmation emails you're going to be getting are from the Bookerville system. You were used to seeing it in the past from LiveRes, and it actually looked like the confirmation was coming from my company, whether I manage your condo or not. So now it's actually a Taco specific reservation system that monitors the whole property. My reservations for units that I manage go in there as just a tracking, track the bookings just like every other property. So that's kind of my main changes. I've got more detail on it. I know all the people in here where I already manage your unit, you have probably too many emails from me over the last month that are 4 pages long explaining some of this stuff. But I do have some little summaries if anybody else is interested in getting a little bit more information on that. And, we're only 30 days into this new system. So I do feel like I've seen some nice little last minute triggers. Now, I'm expecting this to improve and grow as we get through the year. But I think for the first 30 days, I've been happy with some of the increases we've been seeing just in that short time. And it is a short time so far.
When you sent your notification out originally, that just went to your customers, correct?
Everything is going to my customers.
Okay, that's right. Okay, yeah. Okay. Does anybody have questions about that? Anybody on the board?
That's good.
Just one housekeeping, this is who the Taco board contract is with?
Cameron Vacation Rentals?
Yes.
That hasn't changed.
Just making sure that our contract is consistent with what Heather's done. Sometimes we're a little.
Well, are you talking about my management contract?
Yes.
That's with me personally.
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
I do have a question for Heather. Heather, are you going to compile a report for 2019 for the entire year? How you did, how the property is done in terms of rentals?
I can do that. You mean,
Yeah,
different
occupancy,
from the unit specific that I do for you?
yes, I meant
More of
property wide.
I don't know that I would do it property wide because not every unit's a rental. I mean, I can do it for the units I manage and say this is how my units perform. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm just thinking of certain metrics like rental nights, how many there were for the year, comparing it with how we've done in the past. So you have something that tracks the performance of the program especially as you've added the new marketing and things like that, to see what kind of correlation there is.
Yeah, it'd be helpful to have a baseline so that we could
Yeah,
look at the
I see
delta
what
at the
you're
end of next year.
Yeah, and I think the better, I could probably do it two ways. It'd be easiest for me to use the units I manage. And then I can do maybe a property-wide number of nights, but that won't filter out friend stays and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it would show, and it won't filter out, you know, Gary lives here full time. But it would give the overall percentage number of occupancy. And then I could do that same thing for the units I manage. And then that would be like a baseline for what you're saying for how we do in 2020 compared to 2019. It's really easy to do on a unit by unit basis. It's a little bit harder to do, especially when units have come in and out of a rental status during that same year. So, you know, I might have managed, just say, unit 201 for 3 months in 2019, but then it sold and, you know, I don't manage it anymore. So it gets a little skewed. But I can come up with something that we could use for a baseline.
If we're signed up with you and named you as additional insured, we still have to name Tamron as initial insured?
Yes.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, the whole idea is just so we get the notices directly. Otherwise, we're going to have to chase everybody down every single year. So.
And the one that we have is really just for liability purposes if the guest trips and falls and breaks their leg in the condo. That's really what that's for.
Heather, you help out with the what I'll call the medium term and the longer term rentals as well. Does this affect that at all? No changes at all. I assume those folks will not be charged the $150 since they're not using any of those platforms.
The only people that are paying the $150 annual membership fee are the people that are signed up with my program. So the people where I manage their condo.
Okay.
Those fees don't mean anything to anybody else.
Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it.
I'll leave a couple of these little summaries up here if anybody.
All right. Gary, you get the thankless report. The 7 years in running report.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Q2. I own 623 up in Pine Point. And I wanted to give you a little bit more substantial update today on what's been going on with our water and sewer contract negotiations and developments. And I've put together some slides for this. So, Gary, can you fill that up full screen so that you don't have to scroll down in the slide? Enough. Everybody see that okay? All right. So a little bit of a historical perspective to begin with. This is also especially for Boyd and Kathy, who may not have been here seeing the presentation back in 2017 when I covered where things were at that point. The original agreement that we are partially operating under still to this day was. Your call has been forwarded to.
Sorry, we lost Boyd.
Uh-oh. Boyd got a copy of the slides too, so you can,
okay.
You can follow along. Can't find a place to stand where everybody can see me because of this post, so let's get your head around if you need to. So yeah, the original agreement that we were operating under was written in 1989, and it was in effect in perpetuity. It was between Taco and the predecessor of Glacier. At that point, there was an allocation of expenses for water and sewer that was divided in a ratio of 76.7% was Taco's responsibility and 23.3% was the rest of the property. That was based on a very simple calculation because there were no meters in place at that time to monitor how much usage people had. And what they did was they went back to an earlier, almost a decade earlier, if I remember correctly, engineering estimate that was based on what they called equivalent residential units, where they treated condos, single-family dwellings, whatever, all equivalently. At that time, Taco had 381 condos, and Glacier, what was the predecessor of Glacier, had 116, and that's where that ratio came up from. Okay. The our charges were actually adjusted year to year, and it was based on actual audited costs of providing the services. We also had non-performance liens and water rights and facilities in place so that if the service provider defaulted, we could make claims on these things. Okay, next slide, Gary. Next update occurred in 2003 when Carlton's bought Glacier, developed it. That agreement replaced several things related to our rates. In particular, this business of our being able to audit the costs and have input into the rate adjustments went away, and instead it was replaced with a single fixed bulk rate starting at $295,000 per year, which looks like it came from that original allocation of 77%, 23% between us and Glacier. It also provided for an up to 3% increase per year beginning in 2005. That new rate term, that amendment, was in place for 10 years, from 2003 until 2013. I'll remark that there were provisions in that amended agreement that we would come up with a new contract at the time that this 2003 agreement expired in 2013. That was the plan. Next slide, Gary. Okay. I will tell you that the discussions have been going on now since before 2013. Joe was involved, and more recently, John Neagling, before I took over in 2014. In 2017, at the annual meeting, I did a presentation where we finally had some metering in place for our property. And I could tell what our usage was and compare it to what we were being charged. But in 2017, our annual budget for water and sewer was $404,000, which represented 17.5% of our total annual budget. So it's a very large ticket item. We had seen 3% increases from Glacier over almost all of the years since 2005. There was a 2% increase from 2016 to 2017, but they began charging us for irrigation water, which they had not been doing previously, which is now fed by the domestic water lines. Okay, next slide, guys. So this is my slide from the 2017 presentation where I analyzed how much our consumption had been. We discovered from the metering that was in place over a 12-month period that the residential usage represented 10.6% of the production of the total water plant, which is about 50 million gallons, and had been relatively level for quite some years. When we put in the irrigation, that added another 4%, went up to about 15% total. I will tell you that what we were paying and had been paying was probably more than we should have been paying, but we were locked into the provisions of that 2003 agreement. So we worked on how to correct that and save money and make things more equitable for all the owners. Next slide, Gary. So we have right now a working group committee, if you will. It consists of Joe, Greg Collins, Scott, Eric, myself, and we have also augmented that with Ken Golden, Taco's legal representative, legal counsel, and Steve Harris, who is a water engineering consultant we have down in Durango. And we've been doing quite a bit over the last couple of years. Next slide, Gary. In 2018, at a February 20th meeting, Glacier advised customers that the water and sewer business was being transferred to a new entity, which would be controlled by Glacier, but it was called the Elbert Creek Water Company. On March 5th, then the person who was kind of the head honcho in terms of operations, Jim Finnegan, provided us with a privileged and confidential 2017 preliminary water and sewer rate study report by an independent water engineering firm. Glacier, in the meantime, continued and is still continuing to install meters for all the customers so that we can have accurate information about who's using how much, which is a critical piece of information that is needed in order to set equitable rates for everybody. They also began major upgrades to the water treatment facility, and that price tag came in at about $3.4 million in 2018. Okay. They presented to us on March 1st, 2019, a little less than a year ago, a new draft water and sewer agreement. It was accompanied by a set of rules and regulations and a final report from the water and wastewater rate study by their engineering firm. They also formally introduced Elbert Creek Water Company as managing the services. And we were advised that the new rates that they had come up with based on this rate study would go into effect on April 1st, a month after they gave us notice. We had no previous input into what they were doing. The new agreement rate structure was more in line with public water utilities. And the idea was that it would be applicable universally to all customers on a single set of structured rates. And it's also tiered so that much as probably your own water usage and other utility rates are, up to a certain amount of usage, you're billed at one rate. And if you exceed that, then it goes up to a higher rate typically. Okay? However, this was good. This is a major step in the right direction. However, there were certain aspects of that draft agreement that were not acceptable to us. In particular, written into the agreement were that ECWC could change the rates at their sole discretion. They demanded that we give up our existing water rights and facility liens. And they required us, as well as all the customers, to recover costs of the 2018 upgrades that they did. Next slide here. Okay, so Taco, the board decided to pay the new rates, but with a disclaimer saying that this in no way implies that we've agreed to the agreement that was presented to us. Maybe interim, pending what the final disposition is on the agreement. So what do the new rates mean for Taco owners? This is from the 2020 budget line right there, 701 for water and sewer, analogous to what Joe showed you this morning in the financial report. In 2019, our water and sewer bill was $416,268. You can see that the budget amount for 2020 has dropped significantly to $336,000 based on what we saw after the new rates went into effect in 2019, projecting for 2020. In fact, that number is in fact 5% higher than what the estimate was in anticipation of potential raises that we might see in the rates during the year. But it's already a significant reduction. This is bringing us closer in line what we estimated we should be paying. My estimate back in 2017 is that our water rates should be somewhere down around 200,000 per year instead of over 400,000 per year. And the reason why it's 336,000 instead of 200,000 is because of the capital recovery costs that are built into the rates for this year. That's about I estimate somewhere on the order of $100,000 for us. So, so we have, this looks good. We're moving in the right direction. There are disputes over whether or not we should have to pay for the 2018 capital improvements. However, there are two things that we believe will make the rates go up again. One is that ECWC had to purchase water from Electra Lake, and that's probably going to affect our rates, and it may very well happen this year. The other thing is that they have to also improve the wastewater treatment facility. And that's going to be more than $1 million capital cost, again, that will be passed along to all the customers. Okay, next slide, Gary. Our group met with Jim Goodman, who is the new Chief Operating Officer and in charge of ECWC. At that meeting, we're our working group. We did not have legal counsel present. A lot of the communications between us and ECWC Glacier had been occurring via legal counsels on both sides. And that appeared to be a little bit of a bottleneck. And so Jim Goodman agreed to meet with us kind of offline and see if we could come to a meeting of the minds in some way. And that was good. In particular, because Jim had been away from Glacier for a number of years and just come back, and I think about the time that the new rates went into in April of 2019, we brought him up to speed on our concerns over the proposed new agreement and some appreciation of that. One step that Jim took almost immediately was to take our recommendation to create an advisory board for the water company. Next slide, Gary.
We're on it.
Yeah, okay, we're up there. Okay. So in November of last year, at our request, an advisory board was created to advise on the water company's management and operations and services. The initial members include, from Glacier, Jim Goodman is the COO, and Mark Epstein, Taco, me, a representative from Pine Ridge, Crescent Ridge, and High Point Estates grouped together, a representative from the village of Rockwood, and a representative from Rockwood Estates. The first meeting of the advisory board is scheduled for February 5th, next week. So I'll be back up here for that meeting. Okay, so this advisory board was a good idea, but it does have limitations. In particular, it is only advisory. It has no real power to make recommendations, but it is up to ECWC and Glacier to make final decisions. Furthermore, members are all chosen by ECWC. So all of these customers submitted their nominees to serve on this advisory board, and it was up to ECWC to approve them. It is also a purely voluntary board, has no compensation, although it looks like Taco may reimburse mileage costs to attend meetings up here, which should occur on the order of once or twice a year, except as needed in addition. However, I want to say that this is a step in the direction of an improved transparency. We, and the advisory board, will have a more direct view into the operations and how they're running the outfit, and be a vehicle for us to provide feedback to them from our representative organizations, Taco in particular. So I think that's it.
Good report. On the meeting, the attendees, you mentioned Mark, somebody, is he an employee of ECWC or is he a resident?
No, you mean Epstein?
Mark, yeah.
I assume that he is an owner of Glacier.
He's just an owner at Glacier. Yeah, so he's he's like you representing Taco, he's representing Glacier. Goodman's on it because he's Goodman.
He's the chief operating officer of ECWC.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Jerry, you indicated that this new agreement is acceptable with disclaimer and caveat. Have you covered all the disclaimers and caveats that you would have indicated in that statement made on a slide 3 or 4 back?
We don't have an agreement. They sent us an agreement, we refused to sign it.
Right, it's acceptable with disclaimers and caveat.
Yes.
Have you covered all of the disclaimers and caveat in your presentation?
No, it is a general disclaimer. It is a general disclaimer, Ron, and that is that yes, we will, for the time being, pay what they're billing. But this no way implies that we have approved the agreement that they have presented to us.
We send a cover letter with every monthly payment stating that we're paying this, but we're not agreeing to the proposed agreement. We don't agree with the rate changes. We don't agree with anything, but we're paying the bill as billed.
Sort of like
In order-
putting it in
In order,
escrow, but
just in
they're
order to
holding-
keep
they're
things,
holding it.
just in order to keep our account current, that's all. Yeah.
Understood.
And our attorney has exhaustively covered all of the things that we don't agree with in that proposed submitted agreement and why in his communications to Glacier's attorneys. So, yeah. So the stuff, it's all on the table. They know why we don't like it.
And Joe says it's all on the table. It means it may in fact could potentially go to legal proceedings, arbitration.
But at least now we have open communication, you think?
Yeah, they seem to be, they're indicating their willingness to be 100% transparent. We have requested a lot of data from them. What they had indicated when we had met a couple of months ago was they had gotten the consultants to come back in, BBC, to do a rate study that would give them a full year from last March. So that is about complete. And then they're going to provide us that data. And they told us they'll provide any data we ask for.
Jim Goodman has publicly acknowledged that the original rate study was flawed. And that's why they're going back for another one.
I think one thing from a historical perspective to keep in mind, the developer here signed different agreements over a period of 25 years with different neighborhoods. So we have at least 8 contracts out there with different people, all using the same water company, and there is no reconciliation of those terms and conditions.
And the funny thing about all that is a lot of the peripheral properties here, their contracts tie back to ours.
In some form or another.
But
don't have all of ours.
Really, so that.
And none of the residences were metered, right?
Not until recently. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And not all of them are metered now. Right. There's still properties in the estate that aren't metered, correct?
Correct. 5 to 7, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, in the tie back to our agreement was, I would say weird, because it was tied to a rate that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was tied to the theoretical consumption by a C unit at Tameron.
Even though we had bulk rates. And
even though we didn't have a rate tied to a C unit, we paid a monthly flat fee.
Okay, you have a question?
Yeah, mentioned 28 capital expenditures. We should be paying 200,000, but we're paying 336,000 or something like that.
Well, no, that's
not quite.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, so
now, my question is, how many years are they going to carry forward the subject?
yeah, so the capital cost recovery will go on for, I can't remember the exact number of years, but.
I want to say it was 10, but that may not be right.
So they do have it written, but it's going to carry forward.
Assuming we agree to the rate structure when they present
Well,
it to us.
They're all going to have capital.
You're going to have you're going to have capital, right? You're going to have capital recovery forever. You hope that capital recovery after doing some major stuff would narrow down in future years, but there's always going to be an operation that size and the equipment, plant and equipment they have. There's always going to be improvements.
After Scott and I left the meeting, I told him about Steamboat Springs 2.5 years ago, raised their rates 35%. Because for 30 years, they ignored their infrastructure. And utilities across the state of Colorado, across the United States have done this for 30 or 40 years. They've totally ignored the infrastructure. And then all of a sudden, all the main lines start busting. Boom, everybody gets a special assessment.
So let me just say one word about why this issue of the 2018 capital cost recovery is an issue. And that is that the 2003 agreement that we had, which we continued to operate under up until April of last year.
Actually, it's the 1989 agreement.
Okay,
The original.
And it originated in 1989.
Which is a perpetual agreement.
That's right.
Right.
Outside of the.
The 2003 was merely a pricing agreement.
Exactly.
Right.
In that, there is wording, and it was our legal counsel who caught it, if I remember correctly, Ken Golden, who saw that it was written in there that any improvements, expansions to the facilities, the costs would be borne exclusively by Glacier, and specifically TACO would have no responsibility for those costs. Now, when they did their facility upgrade, they gave us a heads up, but they did not discuss with us whether or not we would be paying for it. And so it is still an issue.
Still an issue. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not covered, at this point, that is not covered in the current rates. It hasn't been added in, correct?
No, it is in.
Oh, it is in.
It is in.
Oh, it is.
It's in the BBC study, yes.
So that's what I'm saying is that, for example, I'll just throw this out. If ECWC had agreed that TACO has no responsibility for contributing to the recovery of the 2018 capital expenditures, our rate would be almost $100,000
Less. Okay.
less than what it is now.
But just to kind of paint a little fuller picture, and Dave can help me here, we basically had a catastrophe in the water system. And if Mr. Carlton hadn't stepped in and agreed to pay, we would have been on water allocation for the last 3+ years. We would have no landscaping. We may not even have enough water to take showers. Who knows? So, I mean, you remember when we were on allocation. So we don't really know the full extent, but it wasn't a situation where we wanted to spend 5 years discussing whether or not they were going to make the needed repairs in the water treatment system.
Jared?
Yeah.
Bette McGill, Unit 214. Are we going to talk at all about the quality of the water, that problem? And also, I want to know, are we still relying on 3 water sources, or are they? And what is the primary source?
So
I'm not
I can
sure
answer that.
which the primary source is.
So, and I'm probably not going to get this right. It's TTHM or something like that. There were 2 indicators in that last report they sent out. One of them is a byproduct of their usage of chlorine, I think he said, to clean the water.
Scrub the ash.
And that's a common issue with water companies all over the country. They've gone back and adjusted the levels, and they're now in the right place on that. The other thing that they had an excessive carbon. The excessive carbon was the result of the 416 fire and the drainage last year. So what they indicated they're going to do is this year is during the spring months, they're going to try to balance where they pull water from so that we're not getting as much water from the watershed. They're pulling more from the wells.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that they can balance that so we won't have that issue again. But that carbon is going to be an issue going, for a long time as we go into every spring and in the mountains.
The downside of that is the well water's harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 3 primary sources are the wells. There is Elbert Creek, Electro Lake, and then
Animas.
And then the Animas River. Okay. And so this balancing is going to be an issue. I will point out that in the past, Glacier had from time to time had to report to us and to the state, because it's required by law, monitoring that indicated that there were certain levels of things in the water above permissible levels.
Mineral and heavy metals.
Various things, okay? And that by and large, those things came back down within compliance.
It's worthy of note that what drove it, the annual average up was last spring.
Yes.
The current levels are within tolerance.
Right, and hopefully all of you received the letter that Gary forwarded from Glacier about this ECWC. So you understand, why this happened. You saw also that after the spring runoff, the rest of the year, things dropped down to acceptable levels. They were still not high, but they were still acceptable. But it indicates to me that ECWC understands what the problem is and is addressing it and bring things back into compliance.
We've had, over the years, there have been water quality reports that notices that have showed total dissolved solids was a problem at one time. There was another metal that was a problem another time. And they've always responded well and taken care of the problem.
So Joe, if, like I'm looking at the 2016 drinking water quality report, it's quite extensive. And with breakdowns on iron and sulfates, nitrates, selenium, all of that. Is that just something that's done every so often? Or-
It's done periodically. It's done every year as far as I know. Yeah,
Because we didn't get a report like that this year unless it's on.
it's always been online. Every year's report has been on. I think we got behind on one, didn't we, Gary?
Yeah, last year.
But you caught that up, didn't you?
Sure.
Yeah.
And there have been times when Glacier has been late in reporting.
Yeah.
Also.
And remember, this data, you're getting like today, you're getting data from 2018 or 2019. There's a lag in these reports, quite a long lag.
And I think it's average data, so it may be
And it's average
3 or
data.
4 collections that are all averaged together.
They
So
have to
you
collect
can't,
monthly.
Yeah.
They collect monthly, and what we get is an annual average. We estimate the other day.
And if you go on the website, go to the Glacier Club page,
Okay.
the water quality report is always on there. And those letters that we get from Glacier Club are on there now also. And Sean Young said that we should be getting the 2019, the calendar year 2019 water quality report in the next month or two.
Yeah, it generally comes out in the spring of the following year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, on mostly 788, 789. We are now actually dealing with a public utility.
No,
No,
we are not dealing with a public utility. It is a private utility.
still. So
Okay.
that has not changed the overall status then.
The name changed. The players didn't.
Oh, that's correct.
Yeah. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Glacier Management. It's a Glacier Properties or one of those corporations. It still belongs to Rick Carlton. Yeah.
So moving forward, what are some of our options?
Options?
There
aren't any.
Yeah. That's the option.
Spending a few $1 million to build a water plant and finding a source for the water. Those would be the challenges. Yeah. And finding a place to build it.
Rooftop.
Yeah. We're a captive user. All we can do is do what we're doing to try to fight back.
Right, and in fact, in our receiving agreements, they said that they had exclusive rights to provide water to us. We couldn't go to anybody else.
But should they fail, the company, we have a.
That is right. If they should fail, we have options to step in.
That's all in that 1989 agreement,
From the old agreement.
which is perpetual.
So I'm gonna just conclude. It's gone. while already, but I think we are finally, after years of beating on them, moving toward where we really want to be. So we have a stable, equitable agreement in place for the future.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good report. Thank you.
And I will tell you basically, in the meetings, the few meetings we have that we indicated we didn't have council in that first meeting, we didn't have council yesterday. We're very much trying to keep this on a friendly level at this point. They got the threat. I mean, when we had that last meeting, he had Ken's letter and he threw it on the ground after we said, we're not here to talk about the legal matter. So they got the threat. They know our position. I do think, to Jerry's point, we are in a good place. We also have all our neighbors that are, getting to participate too. So it's, and I know Eric's had multiple discussions with the other neighboring communities, and, they were just as up in arms as the rest of us when they came out. So
Let me add just one thing about that. Sorry. One thing that became apparent to me was that while Taco had been basically subsidizing almost all of the water and sewer operations, okay, the other customers in the outlying communities were probably paying rates, and Glacier paying rates that were below what was equitable. So in this new agreement with everybody going on the same structure, well, guess what? Our rates come down, our rates go down, and their costs, because they're now planning to build in reserves, recover capital costs, et cetera. So the total cost is going up. If our rates go down, everybody else's rates go up, and they're not real happy about that.
So like subsidizing Taco.
There's a lot of people back there that are not happy right now.
all right, Dave, want to do the property report?
Okay. We'll be starting the spring furnace PMs here shortly. One change we mentioned on last year was we're going to go with opt-in filter change. The property has changed so much. We used to be able to get through the whole property in probably 3 weeks. Now it takes us months trying to get permission and get into units. A lot of people don't want us in there, so rather than Gary trying to chase down the whole property, we're just going to let people let us know if they want it, be on a spreadsheet, and we'll work from that. He's already sent out notices once. We'll do it again before we start, but it's just kind of changing the dynamic of the property and how we react to it. The smoking area, mentioned, it's completed. We've seen pretty good cooperation. It's winter, we don't see a lot of it anyway, but we're hoping as we go into spring and summer that from the lodge standpoint, we'll get people to start using it and not be smoking anywhere else. Personnel, as Joe mentioned, we did lose 2 guys last fall. We did move one of our night guys up to full-time days. That is Matt, if any of you met him, real nice young man. Steve worked on getting a second person, John, and that filled out our day shift. We have 2 new night guys since last fall. They're just working part-time in the evenings. So you're going to see different faces out there. We're pretty happy with the guys we have. They seem to be working out. So if you have any questions about the new guys, feel free to ask them. But we still have the core guys, Mark and Gary and myself, Cody, Taryn, but there have been some changes. The TV, phone, and internet, like mentioned, is completed. The one part of it that isn't completed is Cody going around clearing out the rooms, the old equipment. We're close on it, but he hasn't finished. Mostly occupied rooms and ones he hasn't been able to get into. We're down to single digits everywhere except High Point. I think we're just 12 or 13. So if yours is one of the rooms that still has the old gear and you want it out of there, get a hold of us. It's mostly just getting the permissions to get in that's been lacking. And of course, finding the time with Cody now as he's moved on to other things. The backflow preventers on the water, part of this new system also required backflow preventers to be put in. So we have, I think it's 30-some backflow preventers. When those went in, Mark got certified to test those. They have yearly testing. It's a huge savings having him do it over bringing in outside contractors. Plus, that gives us flexibility when we do it. So if a contractor shows up, you have to shut down the water to buildings to do it. We'd be at their mercy when they want to do it. We can schedule it when buildings are less full than others. He's been certified for, it's either 2 or 3 years, but he have to be recertified this year to continue, which he's working on. The lodge guest service centers, that was in the budget last year to rehab those a little bit. We did get through all new ceilings, all new LED lighting in them. We'll do a little bit more this year, but that was the sorriest looking part of them. In addition to just ratty tiles, the lights tended to collect flies. The new LEDs don't have lenses, they're just a single panel. So that's an improvement. South elevator, we signed the contract earlier this month. So the new elevator will be going in the lodge next fall. We may have some small shutdowns before that to get ready for it. Those will be minor, just less than a day. But then in the fall, we will have a full shutdown for, like we have last 6 to 8 weeks. Central Tower will be up and running through all that. So the reason we did Central first is we'll have access to all the floors with that elevator. You may have to come to the Central Tower to get to the first floor, but handicapped access will be maintained through the whole thing. Snow removal, we looked at the budget. As you saw, we had a big year last year. As it ended up, December was actually a big year this year, which I think most people don't realize. As of middle of January, Purgatory and Wolf Creek were actually above last year on their snowfall. So in addition to paying a lot last year, at the beginning of this year, we had a pretty big snow removal bill. The big snows last year came after February 6th, I think it was. So we'll see what comes this year. And that's everything I have.
So question on the filters. I know we always have people that say they don't want anybody getting into their unit, but there's some kind of standard maintenance things that we should be doing. How much damage would we be doing to air conditioning and other units without changing filters out, and how do we want to police that?
We would never hurt anybody else's unit. The filters were not changed in their own unit.
Right. No, I'm just saying, it seems to me the owners have an obligation to let us do basic maintenance, or they opt out, right? So how many units do you have a problem getting in and into to get this done? I mean, obviously, Gary, you're making the phone calls. Is it a huge issue?
Yeah. It's difficult to get a hold of everybody, and what happens then is somebody wants, I'd like to have it done Tuesday at 2:00. That's somebody in Pinecone, and then somebody in Gamble Oak says, I want Tuesday at 3:00. So now you send one person running around all over the property trying to do something that should take, 5 minutes each. It winds up taking 15, 20 minutes each because of travel time and, the time it takes to get a hold of everybody. It's a problem.
The other thing we've run into is people who put in expensive filters. We come through and put in ours are relatively inexpensive. They demanded we go out and buy an expensive one, replace theirs. We just did a fall filter change a week and a half ago when owner called and demanded we do it. So this goes on for a long time.
I'm just curious, if an owner doesn't do the required PM, is he increasing the liability, the risk of a fire to the rest of us?
No, the only thing it would do is shut down his furnace. To cut the airflow to the point where it would overheat and shut down. They all have
So there's nothing in your PM schedule that puts the rest of us at risk?
No.
Okay.
I guess the only thing that we do when we go into units is look at water heaters, check those sort of things. That was something we added. So I guess we may miss a leak that we would see if we went into that unit.
You do the batteries and the smoke detectors too, don't you?
In the CO detectors, yes.
The CO detectors.
Yeah.
I mean, you dealt with the 75 associations. What's the norm for this kind of maintenance?
It's in Steamboat, we did a lot of, and what I've got kind of a broad outline and a foundation setup that Gary and I and Dave will work on is a form that we send out to every owner in March, February, stating that, okay, so as Dave said, we're gonna have a block of time for Pine Cone, we're gonna have a block of time for Gamble Oak. These blocks of times for the lodge, we're gonna come in and look. What I'd like to incorporate is we're gonna look at supply lines for toilets, we're gonna look at under these sinks, so we're gonna look for leaks, we're gonna look, unless somebody signs off and goes, I've inspected all this, I've had a plumber inspect all this, they put their name and a date at the bottom and send that to us. My unit's good. Or we'll take a look at their unit and it's good. That's the only way we reduce risk. That's the only way we keep our insurance premium low. So that's what I've done in the past is an owner either accepts a property inspection by the maintenance team, or they will sign an affidavit saying it's done and it's good.
Should we not have some, and I know you've sent emails, but there's always arguments about why I never received the email. I sent you an email. You say I didn't get the email. Is there a document? Should we have an opt-out form that would be kept on file, and every year that has to recur?
Absolutely.
Almost like the insurance does.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we need that process.
So we just need a database that keeps all of this information, and that's the priority over the next 3 months for myself and the board, is identifying that mechanism and then putting it all to use. I'm getting the information now and putting it into an Excel spreadsheet, which should be easy to kick into a database.
Yeah, I think like some of the systems we saw when we were shopping for all the association management companies, I mean, they have mobile apps and all kinds of different ways to communicate. But I'm kind of the opinion that if you opt out, it's on you. I mean, they shouldn't be running in to get special filters.
No, absolutely not.
You have to come up with a maintenance schedule, and if somebody isn't going to cooperate, then it's on them. In my opinion.
Yeah, I'd take it even further. If you are an owner and you're just in love with 3M filters, then it should be sitting there.
Right, I agree.
You have to pre-supply
Yep.
your battery or your filter, so when our team shows up to do their inspection,
Right.
they'll install your 3M if that's what you really wanted. But if all we've got is Ace Hardware and you haven't specified anything, you're going to get Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
Or Home Depot or whoever.
Yeah. But it's a transition, and people aren't. It'll take a while for people to get used to the new system.
Yeah. Well, obviously, as you look at that software, those are little things that we're going to look at because somebody should be able to just click on the app and say, yeah, go do it. Then they're done. And then you're not chasing anybody.
But I think Scott noted the biggest risk is a homeowner with no insurance and them damaging another unit. And those are the toughest ones to really corral. I mean, they need to be identified, and they just need to keep badgering them to death until they get that insurance policy.
Ron, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say, and I'm glad, Steve, that you just covered what you're going to do, and we're all going to sign an agreement. I would guess that most of us own here in Tamarron or other similar communities, so we don't have to worry about the PM. That's why we support, an in-house maintenance group.
Right.
And that's why we pay the fees that we do for tacos. So by all means, please feel free to enter my units. And I know I just went through that with Gary giving me a call, and I was lucky he was able to grab me because I was on the move and in and out of cell coverage. Second thing I'd like to ask Dave, beautiful modern interior to the elevator, the central tower. However, it's going to have dings in it really quickly if we don't consider making available for the contractors a way to hang and the padding that can hang that you see in most elevators that are also used for freight.
We do have those and they are available.
All right, so it's just there is no way to hang it though.
There is a way to hang it. It's supplied by the interior manufacturer.
Fantastic.
It's going to roll with
and
it.
you require all contractors that utilize the elevator to avail themselves of that.
We provide that whenever we are able to.
I just have one question. You mentioned Mark and Mark certification for whatever it was, backflow. So we're continuing to support that certification?
Yes.
Okay, so we pay for him to be certified?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Dave? Okay, appreciate it.
Dave, can you send me a copy?
Want me to email it to you?
That's fine.
Okay.
You were talking so fast, I couldn't type that fast.
All right, so we've got unfinished business, new business. How do we want to do this? You guys, we want to rifle through them and try and get done, or you guys want to take a break?
I could use a break. Anybody else need a break?
Okay, take a 10-minute break.
I see a couple of nods around the table.
Gary, could you try to help Boyd get connected? I told him we'd reach out on the break, so. So you went, he's connected here, so you just use my phone. Sure. If you need to.
That's your opinion.
I noticed.
Clock stopped.
Is he on here now? Oh, hey, Boyd.
We submitted your name.
Boyd.
I noticed the name change.
Yeah.
Don't put you on.
You're on there?
I told him that's part of it. I was doing it as we went.
Yeah, I can hear you.
They'd say it's over. Right. Saying.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he doesn't know you yet. Because I'm gonna tell you, you bring more.
Yeah.
Detail if you do it right, the analysis to the table. Probably any of them.
Okay, let me, we just kicked off the audio.
You'll find that out after you read it.
A little while ago. Let me see if we also get.
I don't think so. You have a good way of presenting. You're not. You don't bring bad news and try to shove it in your face. You just throw it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history.
Okay. On the phone section, it says there's no way for me to change the setting.
Was when they bought, when they had to draw more water.
Let me try this. Okay, hold on.
You're right.
That make any difference?
I'm just saying that I'm just citing the only time I've ever heard that.
Okay, well, I
But no more
can
holding
see
stuff.
it's right here.
I gotta get out of this meeting. I have to.
Okay.
All right, do you want to try calling in again? See what happens?
It is.
All right, let's do this. Write down this number. If we can't get you, it would be easier.
Yeah.
You call in on the phone here in the conference room. That number is 970.
Yeah, how about you? I'm still standing.
382
Ready to.
6717.
I'm just getting over.
Okay. All right.
I'm making this.
Yeah.
My solution.
We should apparently be kicked off for about
5 or 6 days.
and there, I didn't know it. And it used to be when somebody would type a message chat log, there'd be a little bubble that would show up and have a name and message, and there would be a little thing. None of that. I checked the chat log, it was like 20 entries. You must say, people can't get it. So I reconnected.
Okay, Gary, can you hear me? Gary? Hey, Gary, can you hear me? Gary? Gary?
Yeah. Okay, now it says connected to audio. You still have have the mics on?
Yeah.
You should be able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you try it again? Yeah, he gets carried, so call back up.
So hurry up
Hey, I'm, I gotta find out today. We'll talk today. I will talk today. Okay, I apologize. I apologize.
Gary? Gary? Scott? Hello? Hello? Gary? Gary? Hello?
oh, no. I told Gary, he's like, oh, you just gotta look at this thing. And I kept forgetting to have, because it has CD drives. Right. And I
get you a glass with a lid on it. When you saw any of those pictures, you just scoop it
oh,
up
God.
with the lid on
I
it.
didn't even plug. And then when I looked at the video and I had some of the heights that they were at, I'm like, oh. And then the raging river, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I was thinking that if we get back, you could just sign us up with my favorite restaurant company. We just rode right down there to.
Okay, are you guys doing it? Susan gonna do it?
By Steve.
I just heard about it last night. I'm not laying this on my darling chick. I'm gonna try it. She might stay in the cabin.
Yeah.
I don't think you get her to sleep under the stars.
He was like, because we talked to Susie Overcash, and she was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, yeah, I'll look at this, but I am telling you guys, because I know me. And my husband was just laughing.
Yeah.
But, no, we're busy. I mean, we started snowshoeing out here. We had a ball. It is fun. I'm so glad that they did this.
They've done it. For years, they used to be quite a. Yeah, there used to be a lot of kids running around, a lot of folks just, between skiing and whatever, even cross country skiing.
Yeah.
Skis,
Yeah, and now they bought this, and I'm trying to think if it was Lucas or who the other guy was telling us, but they had the budget for Bristol Lane, and then they're grooving. Yeah.
Our dogs came home tired.
Just to have a rest.
So we
Is that what
thought,
they're thinking, or is this what?
Well, the snowmobile that they have, they're grouping the paths where people can cross country ski and all that stuff. But then they also have the fat bikes, the assisted fat bikes and stuff. Like the snowmobile, like people can just be cruising. I just don't.
Not quite so.
Because I don't know how fast they go. I know, like when we had our CDs, we had the control of our CDs that
Or I think about this.
so either go full blast or something.
Yeah.
So I think we have to
Closed area. That Joe was your rental policy.
Here, so staying one was more than
That Pam's.
Oh, so. Yeah. So
we've been up here several
what
times.
they do is just.
We didn't come up.
Just,
We stayed in Albuquerque for Christmas with Bell's mom, but we didn't like back in December. So we finally got
Yeah,
through that.
it really wasn't.
We just had one last month.
Did you actually
Through all
talk?
that.
I didn't see it.
We stayed here, so my husband started.
Boyd's on here.
He's on there? Okay. We didn't kick off again.
She's back home.
Just a couple, 2 minutes ago. I have no idea.
We know. We emailed them to say, we emailed the folks that are on there and said, let them resolve the audio.
I did it to this chat. Yeah, I'm asking if they can hear it now. I don't see any answers.
So this is going ahead. Are you on public record?
Right there.
I think we got too much strain on public record.
She's back on track.
It shouldn't. Put it that way.
I think this is the first time we've ever done a meeting with we're all on public record.
Well, we used to be on the North Boiler.
That's no longer there.
And that was on
Yeah, okay, I get your point there.
What's up here?
I'm gonna, I'll get the document out of here. We can get the private call. See if that helps out next time.
So. Alright. Joe will talk for a week. Alright, ready?
9 minutes is down.
This girl.
What am I supposed to say? Do I say yes?
Yes, you can say yes, because I am a consultant.
get modified. It's 6 months.
All right, Boyd, we're about to get started.
I got an email, I got another text message from John at 9 o'clock. He said, I still can't hear anybody. I don't know if he's on there or not. Is he on?
He was still on a minute ago.
It had to be something, it had to be something in that.
Well,
because everybody's having
because it looks like we have been kicked off audio a number of times. There's a whole bunch of chat lines here that I didn't know were there. Because in the old format, there was a little bubble that would come up when there was somebody sent a chat message.
Yeah.
And then there would be a little ping.
Now there is.
So there's none of that. So we've been going through this meeting and all these chat log things have been coming in without any way.
You don't even see them.
Bob Lenise had sent me some text saying it's in and out.
Well, apparently Dottie Alexander says that she can hear us now.
He says, John says he downloaded GoToMeeting on his, Gary, John says he downloaded GoToMeeting on his phone and now he has audio. That was 10 minutes ago.
Well, Scott brought up, do we have too many people on the public network? I mean, I can't see.
We got open mics. If there's any noise on any of those other open mics, it'll shut this off.
If there is, we would hear it. I mean, according to
You got everybody muted though, right?
No. Well,
Not on my, not on mine.
I'm looking at this and we've got 4 other people on here and they're all muted.
Dottie, John, and Lisa are showing not muted.
Well, on here, they're showing muted.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, unfinished business. We had a discussion in the last board meeting, or the one actually, board meeting in September, I think it was, about possibly looking at a Quick Mart, little convenience store kind of option. I know Lori Kirkpatrick had done some research. We're still researching it. You'd think to send a picture, but there's in my building, in my office in Houston, just wandering around one day, and I saw a complete self-serve kind of convenience store looking thing. If you think about it, going to a hotel and you can grab stuff off the shelf and say, hey, put this on room 104. Same concept, except that you actually scan your item and run a credit card through. So Lori had done a survey on it. There did seem to be enough interest to at least look into it and pursue it. We're not thinking necessarily about vending machine type options. At least that's not my vision. But it's still the whole research on that is still a work in progress. We haven't really determined the equipment that would need, and that obviously would define the space that would ultimately need to have. Steve, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I'll just continue to research it for the board, see if we can identify some good solutions.
Yeah, and the whole thought is just to have sundries, basic stuff, so people don't have to run into town. Laundry detergent or whatever it might be. Perhaps some perishables if we had a way to people would run down and grab it. But again, still a work in progress. I look at it as possibly something that if we can find the right equipment and we can find the space and it's something we can do, and then the revenue from that, we could upcharge the item slightly, and the revenue that could just be added to the front desk kind of budget and help reduce the amount of carry we have on the front desk. So
sure.
Any questions, comments on that? The next item was the charging stations. I think it was a summer board meeting. The charging stations were brought up. We have done quite a bit of research. I say Jerry has done quite a bit of research as an owner of an electric car. We did talk to Glacier about it, and we brought it up the other day with them as well. They've actually got bids coming in right now. The information that we got, it was about $5,000, wasn't it, for the equipment that you found?
It varies.
I mean, there's different types of chargers, I get that, but.
Right, but yeah, it's on the order of $5,000, $10,000, something like that.
Yeah, because there's single chargers, dual chargers, there's quick chargers, there's, the ones that take 4 hours, there's a whole bunch of options. And you could buy the quick chargers, charge a car in an hour, but those are $30,000. So obviously that's not what we're looking at. Glacier did indicate a willingness to possibly share costs. They're thinking that they want to put it down by the clubhouse, though.
Restaurant
Clubhouse, Valley Clubhouse, whatever they call it.
Oh. Okay, that's a change.
But they did ask if we would be willing to put one
in our park
here in a covered parking, something like that. We haven't, that just came up in the meeting that we had the other day. So.
It wouldn't need to be in covered parking.
No, it just.
I think that would
ease of the 220 run with the least obstruction.
Well, we came up with something. We were talking this morning
today
with Dave.
Oh boy, okay.
We're going to be in our budget this year is putting irrigation in the landscape islands out there, which we don't have now. That's going to require trenching.
Okay.
And if it works, when we do that, we could put conduit in the trench, and that would be and run the power that way. And then you could put the charging station out adjacent to one of the islands, and you wouldn't have to take up a covered parking space, which maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah, or two covered parking spots.
2 spots, yeah.
And then you get them parked, and then we get into a whole. Well, you can only park there for 4 hours. It'll be easier to manage it out.
No, that makes
out by the island.
Yeah.
And then the light the street light is 220, but we couldn't hook a charging station up because it'll hold too many amps. So we'll have to drop a new 220 line out to the island. But just what Joe said, Dave, we're going to do that anyway. So we'll just plan ahead. Where the cost savings may come from is there's a initiative from state of Colorado, which will subsidize this. And if their attorney is willing to basically do all the paperwork, and then we can just boilerplate it, that'll save us some time and some money. So, because if we're going to put up our own charging stations, we're not going to share.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, the original thought was we would share something just to make it easy for both. But let's face it, 5 years from now, we're going to probably need another one anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay. What's the timing on I guess after the thaw, just sometime this summer, they're going to do the irrigation?
Irrigation, it'll be this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, spring, summer. Yeah.
Okay. Ron?
I'm not heavily into the electric. We've just got a little BMW i3, so we charge it home. But in searching the web, it appears that there are at least a half a dozen different companies providing charging stations, and I'm presuming on a franchise basis. And perhaps we could get investors to put these things in and pay us for the electric, and it's a no-brainer deal altogether, and no capital outlay on our part.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you looked into wasn't a franchise deal, was it?
It actually, there are different options. Okay. You can buy the chargers outright, or you can lease them from them, and then they're responsible for everything. That costs more to do that. So there are different options. The outfit that I looked at on was ChargePoint, which I think is the largest vendor of these things around the country right now. I think what's going to be required is somebody or a small group to really quickly investigate this, because my understanding was that the subsidy from the state, it's not forever, and it's coming up, I think, maybe in the
sunsetting. The
subsidy applying and getting it for the February, March timeframe.
Really, that close?
That's sort of what I recall from my discussion with this the fellow at ChargePoint just before the holidays.
Did it get federal subsidies?
I don't know of any federal, but Colorado is good.
Colorado was doing it, sure.
Yeah, we should probably talk to Dave. Dave Harris is spearheading this over at Glacier.
Yeah.
And they've already looked into all the paperwork. They've got 2 bids coming in to install it, so they're a little further along than we are.
Did they apply for the subsidy, Scott?
They talked about the subsidy, so yeah, they'll take advantage of it.
So
I don't know if they've applied for it yet, but
that's good. So in particular, Steve, if you're plugged in, so to speak.
Yep.
What they're doing there. Maybe that can jumpstart us, so to speak.
Okay, that's the limit now.
You're on a roll.
Okay, today, John.
I don't, again, I don't know much about it. I don't have a Tesla and I don't know what the fast chargers are versus the other, but the DC chargers that are available, you're talking about a half an hour for a car to be on that thing and get up to 80%. So there can be a lot of turnover instead of a 8, 10, 12-hour charge at a standard sort of rate. Are we looking at the higher end
in there?
The higher ends were 30 grand.
Printer's not working right.
Yeah, so that's, that there are different tiers, Ron. So there's the one where you plug into your 121 in your garage, like that's what we do
That's
now.
what we do.
Okay,
Well,
right.
we're 220, but
Okay, anyway, then you have a higher level that basically, more than anything, requires a high amperage system. And then you can charge it at a faster rate. And then there are the superchargers that, will
Yeah.
well, the
charge.
Teslas
like
are
that.
all moving. We're going to put in 1 or 2 or 10. And if that attracts owners to buy the cars, if I'm going to be hanging on there for 12 hours, that means guess what? You're twiddling your thumbs or playing
So, but-
dominoes with somebody
Right,
waiting on me to
so-
get off of it.
let me just remark that you can, if you set it up right, you can set it up so that you control what the rates are. So somebody gets charged X amount.
Faster rate pays more per minute or whatever.
That's
Sure.
exactly. So if they're on there longer, the cost is going to go up substantially. Okay. Also, the software that comes, I know with the charge point, it will tell, you can get in a queue and you'll be notified when that charger is available and you can go in and it'll warn you, your time is about up. You better
Well,
get your vehicle.
I would just hate to think that we're spending $10,000 and my car's hooked onto the thing, and that's now $10,000 per car that we paid for, and you can't get on it because I'm in the queue and I choose the slow rate,
Yeah,
I've not studied it. You have. I'm just saying, I'm enthralled with the DC fast chargers as an option, even though that tends to destroy batteries. The warranty doesn't care whether you're using fast charge or not.
Well, Glacier was pretty firmly of the thought that it would attract people to this property.
Don't disagree.
Because not everybody has a charging station. So we would be, one of only a few places in town that have a charging station. That was their thought. So I think, go ahead.
Did they also say, if you apply for a Colorado subsidy, which they're talking about doing, I assume you have to make it available to the public.
That's probably a good point.
Yeah, so it is going to attract people.
Right.
So my suggestion is that you dive into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna
more
get
so
with Dave.
and find out if that timeline is.
Where he's at.
Yeah.
Because in a quick read, it's 2022 when the subsidy ends, but he may have a different impression.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that Monday.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Melissa, Steve, is that subsidy from the Treasury bill?
Oh, I have no idea.
So I did some research on my own. So the state of Colorado has an electronic vehicle grant fund, part of the Treasury bill. And so that was passed. There's a state bill in place, and homeowners associations can obtain funds to install electronic car charging stations in their community. And so that money is available as part of the state treasury.
Okay.
So I was just asking.
Yeah, so it's
Maybe it's something to
it just
dive
says-
into as well. As
It just
part of
says
that?
income 69, innovative motor vehicle and truck credits for electric.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and this is a state bill, State Senate Bill number 13126, and it's part of the Capitol Hill legislation. And so maybe take a look at that.
Okay.
That would subsidize that $10,000 cost because that grant funding is available to homeowners associations.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, one quick thing. Steve, did you guys pass along to Steve the information that I got from ChargePoint?
I can do so if he doesn't have it. I know, I do know Glacier's using
a
ChargePoint.
representative down in Scottsdale, in fact, who is willing to help us grease things to
Okay,
get that subsidy, I think.
okay.
Steve, another thought, just another avenue of investigation. Have you reached out to LTEA yet?
No.
Because I mean, the stations that are set up downtown at the transportation center, they have LPEA logos on all of them, so they must have subsidized those in some fashion.
Okay.
Maybe they would be willing to work with us.
Come back and there's 20 charging stations all over the parking lot.
They'll sell all the electricity to us if they can.
Absolutely. They're looking for you.
All right, we got one cleanup item we need to do. It was suggested that we go ahead and make a motion and pass the change to the contractor rules. So you want to make that?
That's including smoking and the holiday?
Yep.
All right.
Smoking, I mean, do you need to include smoking in that?
It's
Because
just
smoking is a property-wide rule.
But we're
It
just
applies to anybody on the property.
but we're just asking the contractors to follow that.
Yeah, well,
But we, as a board, we've never blessed the contractor policy before.
Formally adopted it.
Authorized Dave to do it, basically, through our rules and regs.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
It might have been done a long time ago.
Yeah,
Well, it's been amended several times and we've never been asked to amend it.
Really?
I don't see where it hurts us to go through the exercise.
Well,
Probably
yeah,
doesn't.
except I haven't seen it. I don't even know what it's like.
Well,
It's on the website.
yeah, it was sent out.
It's, yeah.
I mean, if you want, you can look at it in executive session and we can go back and just close it out afterwards.
Fine.
Okay, let's just do that. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then what are you doing on your change?
My change.
Not the contractor change, but the other rules and regs you wanted to change? Was it on parking?
Oh, parking, okay, with the hang tags and then the covered parking areas. So you want to include that in our,
Might as well.
That's going to require a change to the rules and regs then.
We already have that.
Yeah, you already do.
hang tags?
Yeah. I think hang tags is already in the rule.
Is it?
Yeah, I
Right,
thought
Gary?
it
Yeah,
is.
we did.
Gary.
Hang
Yeah.
tags are in the.
It was, because we,
Hang tags are in the rules. and
because we
regs.
realized last meeting, we had it in there and we didn't,
Right.
we never had it printed or did anything.
Yeah. All right.
All right. New business. You want to start with the roof?
Sure. As we pointed out, when we went through Joe went through the budget, we have spent some money this year to have a outside consultant come in and look at the roof, produce a document. It is a preliminary document to say the least, but it looks at the condition of the roof as it is today, two different options that we might look at in terms of proceeding with a new roof. It gives some ballpark suggestions as to what the difference between those two approaches might be. And it lays out a lot of language in what would be in a bid proposal. If any of you have done proposals for bidding, some of the language is here. What I'd like to propose is that we appoint a committee to report back to the board before the budget is set in October with a recommendation on when the timing of the roof replacement should be and potentially what that roof should look like. And in past, we've had committees that have had board members and members of the community who have those skills. So I'd like to suggest, without necessarily making a motion, I think you can appoint a presidential committee if you want, or we can make a motion. But I think we should get ahead of this because the budget will be here before we know it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the committee. I think it's a good idea. I had also suggested, so just so everybody's aware, that the roof on the long-term asset replacement is actually scheduled for 2022. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And carpet is scheduled for 2021, if I remember correctly. Carpet for the lodge. I'm, to a degree, suggesting we swap that.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't think the carpet's that bad. And if we just have to replace a little bit of carpet because it's just of wear, then let's do it. The roof looks like crap. So I think we should at least consider moving that forward a year and maybe moving the carpet back. So I'm in favor of a committee. Anybody want to volunteer to chair it? Do we have anybody that we know is roofer centric? I don't know. What about contractors? There's nothing that's going to preclude us from having an employee on the committee, right? I mean, Dave should be on.
Why, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to take it on. Just need some volunteers.
I'm happy to take
Somebody
it on.
somebody who owns, somebody with skin in the
Vested
game,
interest
as being a lodge unit owner. That's you.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You or Ron or,
I sold mine.
you're out of yours?
I just stay in my car now.
I bought that one. I thought you moved to one of the outlying areas.
I gave it to Steve when he came in here. You can
Yeah,
have it.
okay.
Gary, do you know of anybody who has, well, we have I know at least one contractor who lives here.
I'll talk to him.
I think, I mean, it,
I'll tell him you said that, Diane.
I mean, at a minimum, I don't mind tearing it. I think Steve should be on it, and I think Dave should be on it. And if we have anybody from ownership that would be interested in participating, then I'm certainly welcome.
And I'm willing to do it
Welcome
too,
to
Scott.
help.
I wasn't trying to add more to your plate necessarily. I'll be here much of the summer.
Okay.
So.
Well, we'll figure it
I'll
out.
be
I mean,
here.
I mean, a lot of this is going to come down to, I mean, Dave's the one that's going to be knee deep in it. But I think it is a good idea to get
But I
done.
think you want some public group, because you got a very different look. You got a metal, a corrugated metal, or you've got a shingle. You got two options. And so there's an aesthetic aspect as well. That's cost.
Yeah.
And duration.
How old is the roof? Remind me.
How old is it?
Older than we want to admit.
Put on in the mid-90s.
Yes. It's not
Mid to
really
late
at
90s.
it's not at its life expectancy, unfortunately. But as Scott says, it doesn't meet the inspection test and the view test.
Well, it's wood, it's cedar shake shingle, which doesn't have a long life.
Well, and especially the heat, the intensity of the sun, just like.
So when you did the renovation, you didn't touch the roof?
No.
No.
Well,
We thought about
couple, some selected spaces. We did over the central tower, we put metal roof up there, and we did the metal roofing along the back here of the lodge, but not the shingle.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, at the time, we thought we still had another 5 or 6 years at least on the roof.
I think that's
Decided to
about
push
what it
out.
was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm trying to remember what the life expectancy of that roof was. You know,
Seemed like it.
We're,
It was 10.
We're at what?
Wait a minute. I may have some answers to this.
We're close to 25 years now, probably. Between 20 and 25 years right now. Yeah. Depending on when it was done. I'm pretty sure it was done 95, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that area.
Okay. You looking for something?
No,
Okay.
I'm just.
All right.
The new business, old business item.
Sure.
We've received some information from Gary regarding some charges and some constrictions on remodeling, painting, so forth. Is there a document somewhere that I can get to, Gary, that lays all that out? You know, because you're charging X number of dollars per day or per month or whatnot, and it seems like that varies a little bit depending upon the scope of the work that we're doing, whether we're doing it ourselves or whether there's a contractor involved.
No, it doesn't vary.
It doesn't vary.
If it's a major remodel, it's $250 the first month and $100 a month after that. If it's a relatively minor remodel, it's $100 the first month and $100 a month after that.
Right. What would you say are the differences between the minor and the major? Carpet is a for instance.
Is that defined in the contractor
It's
policy?
not defined in the contractor policy.
Well, there's something that probably should be defined
I mean,
because
wallpaper, painting, replacement of electrical appliances.
And see, this is exactly the problem, because somebody will always say, I'm going to change the carpeting. And they change the carpeting, and then they also paint, and then they're going to change the appliances, and then they're going to change the cabinets, and then they're going to have the bathroom remodel. And what started out as a minor remodel creeps into something major.
Now, that's a control issue. I just want to know what the rules are.
Well, it's either $250 the first month or $100 the first month and $100 a month after that.
But you need to define the scope of the work.
Yeah, I think,
I can work on that one.
yeah, I don't disagree. It needs to be better defined because we had this debate in September also.
Yeah.
With another, you know, it's, to Gary's point, that the problem is the scope creep. You don't know till you tear something out that you got another problem, right? So, but we can work on defining it. I think it makes sense.
Thank you.
Scott,
Yeah.
I have a comment to go back to the roof. I'd be happy to provide vendor information. There's a gal by the name of Joanna Sandoval. She's with the Small Business Administration. And we have a lot of vendors that we work with that can potentially get you competitive bids. There's Maytalk, there's Jitta Construction, Hart Construction. A lot of them do big construction projects that do roofing. So maybe I'll
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get the names to us, we can get them to Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows the contractors here and what limitations he runs into,
Dave,
that kind of thing.
Exactly.
I mean, Dave already had a bid done from a contractor. Is that a contractor bid?
I know, it's just an
Doesn't
estimate.
expect- yeah, okay.
Well, Dave was telling me that, I mean, this is anecdotal, but he was telling me that he was having a hard time finding somebody who might be interested in doing this.
That's what my concern
Too
is.
small a project, yeah. And in fact, it may end up being done over 2 years because you can't get somebody to devote enough time in one summer to do the work. Was another ramification of that same issue, Joe. So,
But certainly, any names, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not always easy to get people to come up here and do this work.
Right.
Let's see, lien holders. So I think everyone's aware, everybody should have received a survey. If you didn't receive a survey, that means you're on our list of 60 people that haven't responded. You want to give the details? So just to frame this up, when we did the DCCR changes, one of the things we had to give into was notification to lien holders. If there's a mortgage on the property and there is a catastrophic loss or something that might affect the priority of a lien holder, that they need to be notified. So we have to track who the lien holders are. We did a survey a couple of months ago. It's still open today. Joe, you've got the results of that survey.
Yeah, and just in case anybody's interested in looking at what the impact of this is, it's in section 18 of the DCCRs. There's a prescribed number of notice requirements on the mortgage holder for mortgagees, and also 2 or 3 items that would require approval by the mortgagee. So about a month ago, we sent out a questionnaire. I'm calling it a questionnaire and not a survey, because a survey indicates you don't have to respond, but you can. Well, this is required. Every owner has to give us this information, according, in order to be in compliance with our own declarations. So about a month ago, it was sent out by a SurveyMonkey. It came from Gary's email address. I know Gary did get a couple of questions on whether this thing was legitimate or not. It is legitimate. It came from the HOA. We sent 298 requests for information out, equivalent to the number of owners we have. All of those were by email. Did you ever send the one owner who
was the one owner
with no email address? Remember, I asked you to send out a paper
No, I don't
copy.
think I did.
Okay, well, we need to follow up on that.
Okay.
He needs to get sent information. So we've had 223 responses to date. Actually, 249 owners opened the survey, so some didn't. Either they opened it, but they didn't answer the questions. We know who you are. 28 interesting data so far. About a little more than 2/3, 72% of the units in Tamaron, according to the survey responses, questionnaire responses we've had so far, have no mortgage or lien. They're unencumbered. So about 28% indicate they do have a mortgage or lien, and most provided the information that we asked for, which was basically who your lender is, what the loan number is, and their contact address, so that we can notify them in the case of any instances under the DCCRs where we would have to notify them. This data has been all exported into a spreadsheet, so we can track who responded, who hasn't, So we'll start at this point. I'm going to leave the questionnaire up for another few days, close it down, and then anybody who has not responded or has not responded completely will be contacted directly from the HOA, from the board. And because we've got to get all the information's got to get filled in. So that's about it.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. I'm actually impressed that that's a pretty large percentage of response.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Did you say something?
I was going to say, Joe's going to do the follow-up then?
Well,
I'll
with Gary probably.
I'll get the questionnaire complete, and I'll get the spreadsheet to Gary and Steve, and then the follow-up can happen after that.
Yeah.
Fill up.
You want to do one
Then
last
there's-
reminder?
Then
We're
there's
closing shop next Friday. Get your
Yeah, we can
answers
do
in.
There's also the matter of once this database is established, it has to be maintained. I was talking to Gary and Steve yesterday. We've got to get now the title companies, whenever a property transfer happens, that information, if there's a mortgage on the property, that has to be part of the paperwork that we receive from the title company so that we can update the database. The one thing that's going to be difficult, I think, to keep up to date on is if an owner decides to do a refi, or a current owner does a refi, that might change the mortgagee information. How are we going to get that reported? That has
Yeah, we
to.
probably need to come up with some verification method annually of what we show, because the same thing will happen. If you get a property transfer form, it's going to say you got your mortgage from Animas Mortgage, and then 2 months later, Animas sells it to Chase.
Yeah. So now the loan servicer is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those kinds of things are going to have to be, figured in. And then there could be owners who just decide to take out a home equity loan, or decide they need some money and they own it free and clear.
Or pay it off.
Or when they pay it off, they come off the list.
Yep.
So all of those changes, we're going to have to figure out how to keep those up to date.
Well, I think that's part of this larger software package that we're talking about.
It could be.
You have to be able to track all of these things and have a way for that consumer to self-certify certain items annually.
Mhm.
Right now, everything's manual in a spreadsheet, so
Right.
hopefully we can simplify that.
Yep.
All right. Any questions? I don't think we had any. Okay. We already talked about the insurance profile for each unit.
Yeah, we just missed the sledding thing.
Oh, the sledding thing. Did I miss it?
So-
Yeah, I guess I did. Sorry.
So there was a homeowner that noticed there was a slope by Pine Cone that is prone to folks sledding down, which puts snow and ice right onto a sidewalk. So Joe and I went down and looked at it. I discussed it with Scott. At some point in the spring, when we have a piece of equipment available, we'll put a rock right on that slope, right between two trees, and that will deter this.
What slope is it?
It's on the north end of Pinecone.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So just simply a rock installation at some point to prevent the same thing from happening next winter.
Okay. Okay. I will just make a comment about the sledding, and I'm all for these activities that they've done. But when we were here a couple weeks ago, there was someone, I don't know if they were renters or who they were, but they were in Pinecone and they had little ones, probably 5 to 12 years old. And they were sledding where that lake is back behind us. I don't know what hole that is, but they were going down. Those kids did not know that that was water below. So I don't know if we need to look at something like that and either marking those lakes if they are going to allow sledding in different areas. But my husband even said,
See,
there's
that's
no
off our
adult.
property. It's off our property.
But I was like, holy crap.
It's not even our property.
Yeah, so I don't know what we need
So
to do about
that's
that.
a
glacier
talk to
thing.
Glacier about it if it's something that they don't want to have happen, or,
Yeah.
Even if
What
you
hole
put
is-
stakes up, that'd be buried in snow before you know
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah.
As you're going down, 7th hole. So the lake is there, but they were, what's it called? The cart path as it goes down, there's that lake over to the left. And they were sliding, they were going down, and there was no adult. Yeah.
So they were out on the golf course
Yeah.
doing this?
It's called population control.
Yeah, they were probably 5 to 12 years old. And then I came back and I could see the kids were talking to somebody that was in Pinecone. Now, I don't know if they were renting or who they were, but those kids should not have been.
Is this, Gary, is this down that gravel path there, down towards the pump house?
Yes. That's exactly. As you go down that cart path
I guess.
over to the left.
Well, the cart path or the gravel
Okay, so
path?
if you're going down the cart path and the gravel path is over to the left, go down just a little bit further and there's that steep hill that goes down and all that water is right there.
Yeah, that's where one of the ponds is. And the pump house is over to the left over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we put a thin ice sign like they've done in some of these other places.
Yeah.
Again, that's glacier
All we can
property.
do is
We
suggest it
can't
to
put a
Glacier.
sign on somebody else's property. That
No,
needs,
but they have put some in other places.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to mention, I can go over to that house and tell them, but whatever, where you get the skis and stuff, but that should not, because any of those kids could have gone in that water.
Yeah, we could mention it.
Yeah, we should probably just mention it to Jim and say,
yeah.
hey, this is a risk.
Right.
It's your risk. Obviously, we're
Yeah.
gonna get sucked into it if it's something happens to somebody that's staying here.
Right.
But it's their risk.
Right. Yeah, we can, I'll check.
All right. Any other new business? Hi, Diane.
Hi, so Diane Embry, 826. Any news on the dog park?
No, we didn't talk about it the other day.
And
The issue was still,
Still-
I'm sorry?
Is Ken Stone still kind of heading that up?
If he was before, he probably still is. We didn't, like I said, it didn't come up with Jim.
Yeah.
When we talked to him in the fall, he said they're struggling with the right place to do it.
Well,
They-
it could take another 5 years.
Yeah, believe me, they're getting the same, I mean, they're getting asked all the time for it.
Yeah. And I had one other question. I'm having a bad problem with interior icicles on my outside deck. The whole right side of my deck has icicles coming through.
That means you got an
So it
ice dam.
makes an icy floor.
it's where the ice dams form on those above the,
Yeah, just let
above
Dave
the
know.
back decks. It
happens everywhere.
happens everywhere.
You
Depends on the
just have ice
severity of
above
the-
it and it's dripping through and that's why it's getting through that wood. Just,
That big ice. Are we ever is there a way to fix that? Or
Of course, there's a way to fix it, but it's.
it'd be heating tape or something
is
like that.
Yeah.
somewhere?
You'd have to put that heat tape all over the property to keep the ice from forming on the roof.
There's nothing to say an individual owner couldn't do it themselves. We require the new gable roofs to do that, so she could do it herself if she wanted to, or any other owner.
Yeah.
Not sure you'll like the price tag, but,
Well, I had the interior done, where you have the soaring ceiling, you have the tongue and groove. That was redone because of tar. So in the summer, I do get tar on that deck too,
Tar from you mean
little dripping tar.
from the pine trees?
On the interior deck. So something's coming through from.
Well, yeah, like I said, well, it's coming through from the roof, so somebody's gonna need to get up there and look at it. I don't know, the tar thing kind of throws me for a loop, but.
Well, the tar thing is a problem in Pinecone.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, the
Mop tar.
That stuff.
It's the ice and water shield underneath the shingles that's. We've had a problem with that stuff property wide for years and years and years.
Okay.
Ever since the roofs were put on in Pinecone and Gamble Oak and the whole High Point too, there's been on and off and not, in certain areas. The theory was always that there was different qualities of ice and water shield used in different parts of the property and.
Well, I got cheap.
Oh, I understand. Lee Peterson.
Lee Peterson.
Yeah, he got it cheaper.
Yeah, got it from Texas.
Texans.
Ice and water shield from Texas.
Yeah.
You want to make note and let Dave know about her unit? Because we just had somebody out the other day to deal with the other one. Had the same issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting tar drips through the back deck, I'm not sure if we have. I mean, we've had issues with that. High Point had a lot of issues with that.
Still does.
Still does, yeah.
Yeah, it's Gary, Larry and Jan's unit.
Back patio, you can rent out as a skate rink. And I understand what you're saying for years, but I don't understand, that is responsibility of Taco to maintain the roof's not leaking.
No doubt. It's just been a,
I mean, if it's a problem and it hadn't been addressed, then we've tried for 2 years to get somebody up there to fix it and it hasn't happened.
well, I can't talk to your situation specifically, but I would make another request through the maintenance department, and that if you don't get a response, here's the board. Tell them,
Well, you gotta talk to the general manager first.
Yeah.
no, there you go. We haven't had one of those,
Yeah.
so I'm not used to that yet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, his office is right by the.
And
the
his
front
door is
desk
always
for a reason.
Yeah, I might rethink that.
Careful what you ask for, Steve.
Like you said, it didn't every unit. We own the unit next door, and it's divided, I mean, it's open to that now.
Yeah.
There's no problem there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they're not as big a problem.
I don't want to be tongue in cheek, but you've heard this same analogy in a lot of ways, but if you live at Tamaron, it's not when you're going to have it's not if you're going to have roof problems, it's when. Yeah. I've had my share. I've been here a while.
Yeah. Well, it's a place we get a lot of sunshine on your roof.
The problem is you usually don't think about it again until the next winter. It's over that far away.
Or when the rain starts falling.
Okay, any other new business? Next meeting, May 29th. Other than that, I guess we can't adjourn until we go to an executive session, so we're gonna break for executive session.
Stay here.
Well, Dave was getting food, I think he was taking it in there, so. And we'll reconvene after executive session and then close it down. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.